From president mugshots being released publicly, to a presidential concession then statement retraction causing statewide confusion, these are one-in-a-million moments in American politics. A never-to-be-seen-again moment came with the invention of television, when the whole country could watch a what seemed to be untouchable marvel become humanized in seconds on live TV. At 43, John F. Kennedy, the youngest man to run for president with his modern, energizing, new approach to presidential campaigning.
I come to the Bronx as an old Bronx boy. I used to live in the Bronx.
At 47, Richard Nixon, of the Republican Party, exhausted his campaign in all 50 states, while relying on his experience to win him the election. This election marked a time of great change, a new way to win the hearts of the American people. The set of the first electoral debate comprised of a somber, gray backdrop. To the intuition of JFK, he wore a blue suit to attract attention to him, the man of the moment.
I'm not satisfied until every American enjoys his full constitutional rights. I don't want the talents of any American to go to waste.
Nixon opted with a gray suit, coupled with the fact he had a pale face due to him recovering from the flu. During the time of this electoral debate, Nixon was suffering with a knee injury, creating a sense of discomfort which was seen across the country as a sense of nervousness. This risk to focus on camera appearance rather than radio listeners created a great shift in support for John F. Kennedy. Voters no longer saw him as too young, but as a leader. Next up, the big argument of whether it is better to be the best or to be the first. In this case it can be concluded both. Barack Obama, the first African-American president. 2008, the year which will be remembered in the history books for hundreds of years to come, symbolizing progress and the breaking of racial barriers.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. Thank you so much.
After a momentous 21-month campaign, the most expensive in U.S. history, the 47-year-old senator of Illinois took center stage after being elected President of the United States.
Coming. But tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
His legacy is questionable. Whilst getting America out of the economic crisis of 2008, still there are many criticisms of his lack of progress within African American communities. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, barely 9 months into his presidency, the same time he was planning on sending American troops into Afghanistan. Moving back to the year 2000, Al Gore, now a major climate change activist, was once the Democratic presidential candidate who ran and eventually lost to George W. Bush. But before this defeat, a lack of principle leading to indecisiveness left the whole country in confusion.
That I can get something positive done on behalf of the people. That's what the question in this campaign is about. It's not only what's your philosophy and what's your position on issues, but can you get things done? And I believe I can. All right.
One of the closest and most controversial elections in U.S. history. Both high-profile figures respectively. Tuesday, November 7th, the whole voting system was brought into question, shedding light on its mishaps. On the night of the election, Gore phoned Bush to concede, but later retracted that statement after finding out how close the Florida count was, demanding a recount.
Tuning in, you should know that after a long night of swing votes, the presidential race is frankly still too close to.
The initial count gave Bush just a 926-vote lead, a margin within the 0.5%, which triggers a recount under state law. Gore led the popular vote by 60,000 out of the 94 million ballots cast.
3,500 people did not vote for Pat Buchanan. Come on, this is heavily Democratic Palm Beach County.
It is a ballot that was approved by an elected.
36 days after the election date, after lawsuits from both sides and a tug-of-war of how long the recount should take, the Supreme Court declared it was a violation of the 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause, because there was no uniform standard for counting all ballots.
She's the Secretary of State, Catherine Harris.
Next up, the much beloved but turmoiled presidency of the 37th President of the United States, Richard Nixon, the first ever president to resign from office.
I, Richard Nixon, do solemnly swear.
I, Richard Nixon, do solemnly swear.
I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. That I will.
A stern man fully opposed to the rise of communism. A man who ended the Vietnam War and opened diplomatic channels with China.
We must recognize communism for what it is. Mr. Khrushchev understands only strength and firmness.
June 17, 1972, 5 men were caught breaking into the Democratic headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. Media outlets began to link these men to Richard Nixon, leading to further questions of the standing president. Finding an 18-minute gap in the recordings of the president's Oval Office meetings lead to further suspicions of Nixon's knowledge of these break-ins. As time went on, his allies began to abandon him, and in November 1973, his famous "I am not a crook" speech aired.
Never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
President,
yes,
after finding out a Democratic Senate had the overall 2/3 majority to impeach the president, and with the added attack from the media whether he was still fit for office, Nixon felt resignation was his only option.
in a period when our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.